What if the God who created the world believed he was supreme, simply because he had never seen anything higher? The first act of creation is not wisdom. It is concealment. Authority appears before understanding. Power moves faster than sight. A ruler emerges from a fracture and mistakes isolation for elevation. He looks upward and finds nothing he can recognize. So he declares himself complete. The Apocryphon of John records Yaldabaoth proclaiming, "I am God and there is no other beside me." This is not victory, it is a warning. A system is born where fear replaces knowledge and command replaces truth. What cannot be seen is outlawed. What cannot be named is erased. Silence becomes evidence of supremacy. Law hardens to keep the veil intact. This world is not fallen. It is engineered, built to function without reference to what exceeds it. You live inside that design, beneath its ceilings, within rules written by blindness that believes itself eternal. Authority does not begin with truth. It begins with control. In Gnostic cosmology, Yaldabaoth does not inherit rule. He asserts it. Born from a separation, unaware of any source beyond himself, he encounters existence as a closed system. There is no comparison, no higher reference. Power appears absolute when nothing challenges it. This is how authority forms under ignorance, not through wisdom, but through isolation. Yaldabaoth does not ask what he is. He issues commands. He does not seek alignment. He enforces obedience. His rule is mechanical, not moral, functional, not just. The Apocryphon of John describes him as blind, not metaphorically, structurally. His blindness is not a defect to be healed, but a condition that governs. Because he cannot perceive what lies beyond him, anything beyond his reach becomes a threat. Anything higher must be denied. From this denial, law is born. Fear becomes the instrument of stability. Command becomes sacred. Dissent becomes disorder. Knowledge that points upward is treated as treason. The system hardens not to protect life, but to protect ignorance from exposure. Yaldabaoth declares himself the only God, not because he has examined reality, but because reality has been sealed. Silence surrounds him. That silence is mistaken for confirmation. Authority thrives where questioning is impossible. This is not tyranny driven by cruelty. It is worse. It is governance driven by misrecognition. A ruler enforcing limits he does not know are limits. A God defending a boundary he believes is the edge of all things. Creation under such authority is narrow by design. It must be. Any openness risks revelation. Any fracture risks collapse. So the world is structured to repeat, to obey, to submit. Hierarchy replaces understanding. Law replaces insight. You are not commanded because you are evil. You are commanded because obedience maintains the illusion of supremacy. A system built by blindness cannot tolerate sight. Authority, once mistaken for truth, becomes self-protecting. And once self-protecting, it becomes absolute. The veil does not fall by accident. It is enforced. Ignorance does not rule by accident. It organizes itself. Yaldabaoth's blindness is not passive. It is active. It moves outward, shaping the world to match its limits. What he cannot perceive, he must neutralize. What he cannot understand, he must forbid. Ignorance, once armed with authority, becomes policy. In Gnostic texts, this ignorance is not portrayed as confusion or doubt. It is certainty without awareness. Yaldabaoth does not question his position because questioning requires comparison. Comparison requires reference. Reference requires a reality beyond the self. That reality has been sealed away. So ignorance hardens into conviction. This is how error becomes law. The Apocryphon of John presents a ruler who governs through proclamation rather than comprehension. I am God, and there is no other beside me. The declaration is defensive. It closes a system. It prevents appeal. Once spoken, nothing higher can be admitted without dismantling the entire structure of rule. Ignorance now has a task: preservation. Anything that hints at a higher origin becomes dangerous. Memory becomes subversive. Insight becomes illegal, not because it causes chaos, but because it exposes incompleteness. A blind ruler cannot afford mirrors. So the world is arranged to forget. Cosmic hierarchy is inverted. The lesser claims finality. The incomplete declares itself whole. Light is reduced to utility. Knowledge is reframed as disobedience. Ignorance does not need to understand truth to suppress it. It only needs to recognize threat. This is where fear enters the architecture of reality. Fear is efficient. It requires no explanation. It conditions behavior without instruction. Under fear, obedience feels like safety. Silence feels like survival. The system no longer needs to argue for its authority. It only needs to punish deviation. Ignorance, once defended, becomes sacred. Questioning it is framed as betrayal. Dissent is no longer disagreement. It is rebellion against the structure itself. Here, ignorance ceases to be a lack. It becomes a principle. The world constructed under such rule is not chaotic. It is rigid, predictable, narrow. Everything has its place. Everything has its function. Everything exists to reinforce the claim that nothing exists beyond this order. This is why higher knowledge must be erased rather than debated. Debate implies uncertainty. Erasure implies certainty. When texts are destroyed, when memories are rewritten, when origins are obscured, ignorance is no longer challenged. It is confirmed. You are not born into a neutral cosmos. You are born into a managed one, a reality curated to feel complete while remaining closed. A system where ignorance sits on the throne and calls itself God. And it must never be discovered that it is not alone. Creation under blindness is an act of containment. Yaldabaoth does not create to express fullness. He creates to stabilize rule. The world is not shaped as a reflection of harmony, but as a mechanism. Matter is organized to obey. Time is structured to repeat. Space is divided so that nothing escapes its assigned function. In Gnostic cosmology, this act is not celebrated. It is diagnosed. Creation is not condemned because it exists, but because it is incomplete and insists on finality. a closed system pretending to be absolute. The material order is not evil. It is limited, and limitation, when declared supreme, becomes oppressive. The ruler who does not know his origin must ensure that no origin is remembered. So creation is designed to distract, to occupy attention, to exhaust awareness. Cycles replace ascent. Labor replaces insight. Survival replaces remembrance. This is how the veil thickens. Genesis in this reading is not the birth of light, but the organization of darkness into function. Not chaos tamed, but ignorance structured. The world operates smoothly because it is engineered to do so. Its coherence is its greatest deception. Yaldabaoth looks upon his work and sees order. He does not see absence. He does not see what was excluded to make this order possible. He mistakes stability for truth. And so the creation is declared good, not because it reflects the source, but because it reinforces authority. The Apocryphon of John describes this creator as fashioning the world with the assistance of powers beneath him. They shape, divide, and regulate, not to liberate life, but to fix it in place. Each boundary is intentional. Each limit is defended. Creation becomes a map of control. Light is embedded but buried. Spirit is present but trapped. Consciousness is distributed but fragmented. The world functions, yet something essential feels withheld. Not lost, withheld. This is why creation feels convincing and suffocating at the same time. It answers questions while preventing deeper ones. It provides meaning while denying origin. T offers roles, identities, laws, and narratives that feel complete until you attempt to look beyond them. Then resistance appears, not from chaos, but from design. The created order reacts aggressively to inquiry. It rewards conformity. It punishes deviation. It labels memory as madness, insight as arrogance, longing as sin. Creation polices itself because its creator cannot tolerate exposure. This is not a universe that fell away from light. It is a universe arranged to prevent return. And yet, something within it remembers. Fear is not a byproduct of this world. It is a tool. Once creation is stabilized, fear becomes its maintenance system. Yaldabaoth does not rule through intimacy or trust. He rules through consequence. Fear compresses thought. It shortens vision. It keeps attention locked to the immediate. Survival replaces inquiry. Compliance replaces curiosity. In Gnostic understanding, fear is not merely emotional. It is structural. It is embedded into law, ritual, hierarchy, and identity. The world teaches you what to fear long before it teaches you what to know. Fear becomes the first language of authority. This is how governance under ignorance sustains itself. A ruler who cannot see beyond his own limits must ensure that no one else does either. Fear performs this task efficiently. It disciplines without explanation. It enforces boundaries without argument. Under fear, people police themselves. They learn what not to ask, what not to remember, what not to imagine. Fear transforms power into inevitability. Yaldabaoth's declarations are reinforced by threat. Obedience is framed as safety. Disobedience is framed as destruction. The world is presented as fragile, constantly at risk of collapse if order is questioned. Authority becomes synonymous with survival. This is the genius of the system. Fear does not need to prove the ruler is right. It only needs to prove that resistance is dangerous. Once fear is internalized, the system no longer requires constant force. Belief is replaced by habit. Submission becomes instinct. In this environment, higher knowledge is not simply forbidden, it is terrifying. To know more than permitted is to risk exile, punishment, annihilation. So ignorance becomes preferable, not because it is true, but because it feels safer. Fear reshapes desire. You begin to want what the system allows. You begin to distrust what exceeds it. Longing for something beyond the given world feels reckless. Memory feels unstable. The idea that reality could be otherwise becomes unsettling rather than liberating. This is how fear inverts the soul. The higher is recast as threat. The deeper is recast as danger. The unknown is no longer an invitation. It is an enemy. Under such conditions, ignorance does not feel imposed. It feels chosen. Yaldabaoth does not need to watch constantly. Fear watches for him. The veil is no longer external. It is carried within. And anything that threatens to lift it is met with immediate resistance. Control reaches its highest form when opposition disappears. Yaldabaoth does not merely forbid what threatens him. He removes it from memory. Erasure is more effective than punishment. Punishment leaves traces. Erasure leaves silence. When something is forgotten, it cannot resist. In Gnostic accounts, this is the decisive phase of rule. Knowledge of higher realms is not openly debated or refuted. It is buried. Texts vanish, names dissolve, origins are rewritten. What once pointed beyond the world is reframed as myth, error, or danger. Over time, even the idea that something was lost becomes unthinkable. Erasure stabilizes ignorance by eliminating comparison. A closed system survives only if alternatives are inaccessible. If no higher reference remains, authority no longer needs to justify itself. It simply is. History is trimmed to fit the present order. Memory is narrowed until it aligns with law. This is not random censorship. It is structural maintenance. Yaldabaoth's rule depends on the disappearance of contrast. Without contrast, limitation cannot be recognized as limitation. The finite can claim infinity. The partial can claim totality. Erasure allows ignorance to appear complete. The Apocryphon of John survives precisely because so much else did not. What remains arrives fragmented, hidden, often mislabeled. Gnostic memory persists at the margins because the center could not tolerate it. To remember differently was to threaten the foundation of authority itself. Erasure reshapes perception. When higher realities are removed, the world feels final. Suffering feels deserved. Hierarchy feels natural. Obedience feels rational. The idea that reality could be otherwise begins to sound absurd. Those who speak of origin are dismissed as unstable or dangerous, not because they are wrong, but because they disrupt coherence. Erasure does not argue against truth. It makes truth inaccessible. This is why suppression intensifies as institutions consolidate power. The more absolute the claim of authority, the less deviation can be tolerated. Uniformity becomes sacred. Complexity becomes suspect. Simplicity becomes law. What is erased is not only knowledge of the source, but the capacity to recognize it. When memory is stripped away long enough, even light becomes unrecognizable. Vision dulls. Longing weakens. The veil no longer feels imposed. It feels natural. And so the greatest victory of ignorance is achieved. You are not told that something is missing. You are taught that nothing ever was. Erasure completes the architecture of rule. But absence leaves pressure, and pressure always seeks release. An illusion does not deceive by lying. It deceives by functioning. By the time erasure is complete, the world no longer feels imposed. It feels inevitable. The system Yaldabaoth governs does not announce itself as false. It presents itself as all that has ever been. Illusion becomes convincing when it operates without friction. This is the final refinement of rule under ignorance. The world works. Causes follow effects. Laws produce outcomes. Identity appears stable. Authority appears necessary. Nothing seems obviously broken. And that is the danger. A broken system invites scrutiny. A functioning one discourages it. In Gnostic understanding, illusion is not fantasy. It is misrecognition, embedded into reality itself. You are not shown something unreal. You are shown something incomplete and told it is whole. This is how blindness perpetuates itself without force. Yaldabaoth does not need to hide anymore. His ignorance is now distributed. It lives inside perception, habit, and expectation. The system trains you to recognize only what it can contain. Anything else feels unreal, impractical, or threatening. Illusion thrives on usefulness. The world rewards participation. It punishes withdrawal. It grants comfort to compliance and instability to inquiry. Over time, this conditions trust. You trust what sustains you. You distrust what unsettles you. The illusion does not need to declare itself true. It simply proves itself livable. This is why awakening is described in Gnostic texts not as learning something new, but as remembering something that does not fit. A pressure within experience that cannot be explained by the world that contains it. Illusion resists exposure by appearing reasonable. To question the system feels excessive, disruptive, dangerous. The illusion protects itself by aligning with survival, identity, and belonging. To see beyond it threatens not just belief, but structure, relationships, roles, safety. This is why ignorance remains powerful even when its claims weaken. Yaldabaoth's greatest achievement is not domination, it is normalization. His blindness becomes the baseline of reality. His limitations become the boundaries of thought. His authority becomes the definition of order. And yet, illusion is never absolute, because what is incomplete cannot fully satisfy what originates beyond it. Something within you experiences the world as insufficient, even when it functions. A quiet dissonance. A sense that reality answers questions you did not ask, while avoiding the one that matters. Illusion holds until recognition begins. And recognition is the one thing blindness cannot anticipate. The veil still stands, but it no longer feels seamless. What rules this world is not evil. It is ignorance armed with power. Yaldabaoth does not fall. He does not repent. He does not awaken. He continues to rule precisely because he does not know what he lacks. His authority remains intact as long as blindness remains mistaken for supremacy. The veil was never meant to be temporary. It was engineered to endure, to feel natural, to feel final. And for most, it does. Yet something persists beneath it. Not rebellion, not correction, recognition. A quiet pressure that does not seek permission. A disturbance that cannot be fully erased. Not because it is strong, but because it does not originate here. Gnostic texts never promise escape through force. They describe exposure through awareness, not a battle against the ruler, but the collapse of his claim once seen clearly. This is why the archons matter, not as monsters, but as extensions, instruments of a system that must constantly regulate, distract, and contain. Their function is not cruelty, it is continuity. You will see them more clearly next. For now, understand this. The world you inhabit was shaped by limitation that believes itself absolute. Fear was installed to maintain it. Erasure was used to stabilize it. Illusion was perfected to make it livable. And still, something remembers. If this recognition stirs, remain with it. If the veil feels thinner, do not rush to resolve it. Clarity does not arrive with comfort. The light was never lost, only waiting to be remembered.